So we're taking a look at payroll problem number 3. Let's just go ahead and we just assessed that he is over the 200,000. So Joe's, how much is he making? 30,000?
Yeah.
His net check, we are going to have to gross up, including the 0.9. So I think probably the easiest thing to do is let's just start, 18. Let's start by doing Joe and Sally. And I think we'll just come down here. And when we gross up something, we actually start with the net check, right?
Yeah.
So 30,000 and 22,500, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. 30,000. 22,500. And I try not to do, oops, yeah, I see that. I try not to do pennies with a lot of things, but with this, we actually have to.
Yeah.
So then let's come over here and just, and again, we may or may not have all of them, but, sorry?
22,500.
Oh, 22,500. Let's just come over here and make sure that we can actually identify all of the taxes. So what are some of the taxes that we might need to take out? HI.
9%.
Maybe we actually should have that as 2 lines. Do you think that's beneficial to think about that twice? Can we just do it like in the order that we have it in our matrix? So we start with fit, then what? Yeah, didn't we usually do fit and sit and then, I mean, I know they don't have sit, but I just want to line out all the taxes so we think of them every time. OASDI, HI regular, oops. Let's just do HI reg and then HI 0.9. And maybe we should just do that all the time so that prompts us every single time to ask the question, are they over 200? So then let's put the percentages. So what's my percentage for fit? 0.25. And what's my percentage for sit? But if they were in Montana, we'd put in 0.03, but they're not. OASDI, now this is, I think we are actually going to have to have 2 columns, right? Because one of them has OASDI and one of them doesn't, right? Oh, are they both over? Okay, all right. So that prompts you to ask the question, have they reached the cap? Okay, and they both have HI regular, right? Oh, this has got to get... 0.0145. And then she doesn't have this, and he does. So the next thing then to do is to sum up. No, it's 0.009 is how you put in 0.9%, right? So you've got to move your decimal place over to. So I think when we write,
Yeah, I thought it was 0.09.
0.9%, and then you have to move your decimal 2, right?
I guess I just thought.
So it's 0.009.
I didn't get my math. Yeah, I thought it was 9% above 200.
0.9, so you got 2 over. So, yeah, so your numbers are going to be a little, a little off. But, I mean, the point is, do you know how to do this? So here's the taxes for each of them. So then the question is, how much do I gross, what number do I use to gross up? Oops, already on cap lock. So it's 1 minus the tax, right? So I go 100% minus whatever the tax rate that was that we identified. How come that didn't work? Equals 1. So that's 0.7355 for Sally, and for Joe, it is 0.7265. So really these whole first steps are just to come to that percentage, isn't it? So, because that's the number that we use to gross it up. So when I get to my gross up here, I'm going to take what divided by what? So Joe's supposed to get this amount, 30,000, right? Yeah, divided by the gross up percentage. For $41,293.87. And then if you've set this up, you can just go take your gross. I think you've got to absolute it because you don't want that number to change as you go down. And then just multiply it by the percentages, and you can just pull that down. And then just put it to, right? So, and I can eyeball this and see that this number minus these equals 30,000, but you would actually run a tape over it to make sure that it exactly came down to that. And if you were a penny off one way or the other, you'd adjust it. And the same exercise with Sally, 22,500 divided by 0.7355. And then we can take her gross, absolute it, times the percentages, and pull those down, and then just put everything into comma format. And it looks like I can eyeball her. We're going to have to make an adjustment somewhere for a penny. So I'll just change this one. It doesn't matter a whit where you change it. So next thing is we want to figure out our 941 deposit. So I think we can take the total fit for both of them. And we can take the HI. Oh, this is tricky, isn't it? How am I going to write this? Help me write the HI. Right, but we also need to get in the other one too. It is, but employee only.
You just don't times it by 2.
You just don't times it by 2 because the employer doesn't match. Are you with me?
Yeah. Total fit.
So I'm gonna write this up here, but what I'm taking is 598.76 plus 443.57, and that whole number is times 2, employer. This number right here is not matched. Right? Remember, you don't match that piece, so that's the formula I'm writing is gonna take that into consideration. So let's take this guy plus this guy times 2 plus this guy. Okay, so that's a deposit. Holy schmoly. So that's in addition to cutting these 2 checks, you've also got a $20,427 deposit due. So this is sort of one of the points of this exercise, is when you say, oh, our company did really good this year, let's bonus ourselves out, we want these net checks. You've got to be aware of what exactly it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you $52,000 plus another $73,000 to write those 2 checks. You guys don't like this. Is it just Friday and you're kind of done with the week? Okay. Do you want me to show you where the points are? Yes. 12 points. I think what I'll do is just put a little blue block wherever there's a point. So Really, the key to it is give yourself +1 if you just basically set it up like this, like you did a gross check minus all the taxes equals net. That's +1. Then you get +1 if you caught that there was a 25% fit. You get +1 if you caught that they both had capped for OASDI. You got +1 if you caught that they both had 1.45% taken out for HI. And you get +1 if you caught and correctly put the number in, the 0.9%. So now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, right? These 4 points plus the +1 if you just set it up. So that's 5 points. 6 points, and again, you're not going to get dinged over and over and over if you got the number wrong for 0.9. And this is kind of policy or procedure points. So +1 if you summed up the total of the taxes for both of them. So now we're at 6 points. +1 if you took 100% minus the tax rate to get to the amount you grossed up on. So now we're at 7 points. Yep.
So do we have to have those in separate columns to get those points?
Well, you've somehow got to have that they're not the same number.
Yeah,
I mean, however you did it, you've got to, somewhere in there you had to have separate somethings because these aren't the same number, are they?
Yeah, I just did my calculations and wrote it right into the formula to get the numbers.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, not preferable, but fine. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the 8th point is, did you do the division to get up here? The 9th point is, if I run a tape over your calculations, do you come nice and neatly to the net, right? In other words, gross minus all the taxes come down to the net. So that's 9 points. 10 points. The 10th point is, did you add up fit? The 11th point and 12th point is in this formula. So the 11th point is, did you double the regular HI? And the 12th point is, did you pick up that it was an employee only on the 0.9? Clear as mud? Want me to go over that again? I can sure do it one more time. +1 if you just set it up correctly. +1 if you have 0.25% as the fit supplemental. +1 if you caught that they don't have any OASDI. +1 if you caught the 1.45% for each of them. +1 if you caught 0.9% for just Joe. +1 if you added up all the taxes to get the percentage that the taxes take up of the gross.
So you still get +1 even if they're wrong?
Yeah, because you've already gotten dinged for that. Okay. So if you're continuing on doing the correct process, you're never going to have right numbers from here on in.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So then +1 if you took 1 minus the taxes to get to that number. +1 if you, so we're at 8 points if you grossed it up. +1 if the whole thing pencils out to the penny down to the checks. +1 if you got, so that's the 10th point, if you put fit into the deposit. +1 if you doubled the regular HI. And +1 if you felt that it was employee only. So tell me how many you got correct out of 12, please. And if you have just a big old question mark on the top of it. Okay. And those can probably go down here, if you don't mind. And then we should probably get out our 940s. And I'm going to show you where to go on Moodle. So go to Moodle, please. How you doing? Okay, got it. I entered this formula there. Yeah. Preston, I've got some stuff for you too. If you're leaving early, come grab it. Let's go to the Sure Value Payroll Register. And you guys, and then you can right click on it, I think. And how do I do that? I've got to rotate it. Maybe I can't do that in here. Let's payroll. Okay. Right. So do you have this up? Actually, let's start with banner. That'll be easier. So this is the banner payroll register. You're going to have that up. You're going to have in front of you, please, your Form 940. And then you're going to have a piece of paper, your notes, turned around landscape in front of you. I'm going to show you how to set up a table to get the numbers to put in here. So you got three things. You've got the payroll register on your computer in front of you. You've got your notebook turned sideways, and then you've got your 940 sitting out. And here's what your notebook in front of you is going to look like. You're going to set up 4 columns for the quarters, and then a total column. What's the rule with FUTA? When do we stop paying? When they hit $7,000. And then the other thing that you need to know is the deposit rule for FUTA and how often we actually file the tax return? Just once a year. Because it's a pretty small tax, right? But the rule about the deposits is once you get to $500, cumulatively, you have to deposit. So if you don't get there all year, you just save your money and you send it in with us at the end of the year. If you're a big company, calculate, this first quarter we owed $926, you got to pay that. Okay? So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out when we have to make deposits and what our total taxable FUTA wages are. So on your payroll register, you've got the names of 4 employees. Put those down here. And then using the payroll register, I want you to figure out how much they earned every quarter. And there's no change between the quarters. This is a very simple example. Crete, Crowley, Irvine, and Klamath. So how are you going to figure out how much they make a quarter based on this payroll register? One more time. How are we going to take this payroll register and fit their quarterly wages? I'm trying to get this just basic matrix put up, and then I'm going to, out of that, I'm going to figure out how much taxable FUTA wages are. So how am I going to convert what we got in front of us into this chart? How often is the payroll? Wait, does yours say semi-monthly or weekly? Okay. Yeah, so you are correct, Preston. You are going to, I know I changed this, I just didn't change it for you guys. I don't know how that happened. So yeah, you need to multiply by 6 to get their quarterly wages. What number are you multiplying by 6? Yeah, the gross pay. So fill out this chart And then at the bottom, your first subheading is going to be total wages. In other words, just tally it up. Okay. Then the next thing we're going to do is figure out food wages. Okay, so you're just taking and actually fill it out. You're taking the gross pay times the number of paychecks in a quarter, which how many are there? 6.
Oh,
No. I didn't. Sure. So once we get to this, you can see just by eyeballing it how many of our employees have capped. Over the course of the year. Have any of them capped? Have they all capped? What do you think? They've all capped, right? They're all over 7,000. So we need to figure out when they capped, and then based on that, we can figure out when the deposits should have been. And again, in the real world, you're not going to actually be doing this. Your computer's going to do it for you, but you can't check something unless you know how it works. Yeah, and again, not a great assumption, but for our academic purposes here, we're saying, yeah, sure, they all made the same wages but yeah, in the real world, is that going to happen? Of course not. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, sorry, am I going too fast? I'm using Excel.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm confused about how, the times 6.
Because, that's just because it was a semi-monthly payroll register.
Right,
And these are quarterly wages, right?
I just added them all up and times the whole thing, but like their actual wage, like that's something different, so I don't know.
Let's look. I think it's this number, Amanda, the gross pay times 6.
That's what I had here. I don't know. I mean, that must have happened. Don't worry about it.
E10, E11, E12, I think I've got it. Okay, so let's then just take a look. 3,042, 3,042, and this goes on down. 3,096. 3,096, 3,096, like this down. When do you think that that Creek capped? What quarter did he cap in? In the third quarter. So what we're saying then is in the third quarter, all of his wages are not susceptible to FUTA, correct? So the question is, you just take a pencil or a different colored pen or whatever. How much of his third quarter wages, in fact, were susceptible to FUTA? That's the next question. See if you can get that. If we all agreed that the entire 3,042 isn't what is taxable for FUTA, how much of it is taxable for FUTA? Can you figure that? So we cap at what number? $7,000, right? And how much has already been taxable before this quarter? Yeah, the sum of these. So in the third quarter, how much is taxable for FUTA? 916, yeah. So I want you to go through and do that for all 4 people. And then once you hit the cap, then what is his taxable wages here? Yeah, for FUTA. So go ahead and do that with each person. And then get me that next row, which is FUTA wages. In other words, how much am I paying FUTA on each quarter? So like in this quarter, it's everything. But in this quarter, there you're going to have some crossouts. So, $13,254, $13,122, $17,24, 0. Okay, did everybody get to those? And if you didn't, tell me, let me know if you didn't. Did you get something different? Okay. And this number should make sense, this 28,000, because you got 4 employees that have all capped. The only reason we're even going through this is to figure out when I've got a deposit, according to the $500 rule, and then we're going to take these numbers and just dump them straight into the 940. So this is like the prep for that. So these 4 lines at the bottom is kind of the data that we summarize from the actual raw payroll data. And then the numbers that we calculate down here is what's going to go into the 940. Does anyone have a question about where the FUTA wages came from? Everybody capped at some point, right? Okay, how am I going to get the liability itself? What times what? How much is the liability? What percentage? FUTA tax is 0.6. So how do I write that? 0.006, right? So go ahead and figure out how much the liability is per quarter. That's just a simple calculation unless they happen to be in a credit reduction state. So that's just multiplication. And then the next question is, do I have to deposit during the year? Does it cumulatively ever get over 500 bucks? No, I don't have to deposit. All I do is I wait and I pay with the 940, right? I pay this amount with the 940. So this little table, now we're just going to dump that into our 940. Preston, you're shaking your head. What's going on?
No, I just remember my change.
Oh, okay. They're shaking your head like, no, 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 no. Okay, so now you've got your 940 in front of you. And you should have the information that you need, minus the address. I think I tell you down here it's the second quarter. So go ahead and get the top of the 940 filled out. Where is that? Right, so you can put the EIN up here, the name, the state you paid it to. And you get that little top filled in, and then basically this is kind of like the 941. You got to read the instructions, kind of line by line. Line 1A, I think I'm in Montana, so MT. And then the next two are asking, those are the ones that we talked about if you're multi-state or if you are in a state that has the SUTA credit reduced because you're defaulting on your Title 12 payments, but that's not the situation here. So you're just going to go straight to line 3. And what do you think total payments to all employees is going to be? From our table, what number is that? Yeah, total gross. So plug in your total gross. Which is the what, 53016? I think it's this total gross number out here, right? Total gross wages for every, because this is an annual report. Then we're going to kind of back up into the next number. So of that $53,016, how much of it is actually taxable for FUTA? Just the what? 28,000. So that goes on line 7. Total taxable FUTA wages, 28,000. So if I paid, so line 3 has got the 53,000, or I'm sorry, is it line 3? I don't know what that is. Oh, never mind, that's a 940. So line 3 has got the 53,016, line 7 has the 28,000. Line 6 says, if we paid 53 and only 28,000 is taxable, then how much was not taxable? And that's the number that goes on line 6, which is the difference.
Am I just reading this wrong, or I'm reading it as line 4 is,
So I'm starting on 7, and it says 3 minus 6 equals 7, right? And I've got line 3 filled out. I've got line 7 filled out. So now I've got to back into 6, don't I? Because it tells me line 3 minus line 6 equals line 7.
what goes on line 4 then?
We're backing into that.
Oh,
Yeah. So gross wages. It won't let me enter in here, sorry, it's not a fill-in form. 53016, right? And then I've got line 4, 5, 6, and 7. So first I did this, then I came down here and said, well, what's taxable? 28,000. Okay. And then this minus this equals this. So I just kind of back into this number. And there's only 2 reasons, which it tells you on line 4 or 5, why you wouldn't be paying tax on $25,016 of wages. Either it was specifically exempt because it was retirement pension or fringe benefits or group term life insurance, or it was money that I paid people in excess of $7,000, which is it? Yeah, it's line 5. And 4 plus 5 equals 6, and 3 minus 6 equals 7. So this all just kind of tallies out. We're not going to have any adjustments. Or, I'm sorry, you got to do line 8. So line 8, you can either do the math or you can pull the number you've already calculated straight from the table. Right? FUTA wages times 0.006. So how much are my FUTA wages again? 28,000, and my rate is 0.006. I think 168, isn't it? Yeah, 168. Which is the same as the number on the table. We're not going to have anything in part 3, so you can just pull that number right down to line 12. And then line 13 says, how much have you deposited for the year? None. So line 14 is how much is due? Yeah. So 12, 13, and 14, 168, and then 0, and then 168. And then basically the reason that we did the whole table is to see on the second page whether or not I complied with the deposit rules. In other words, if I got over $500, did I send it to them?
quick question, how does
Sure.
successor employee?
Successor employee. Oh, no, that means I took over somebody else's business. None. Check all that apply, none of those apply. It's not amended, it's not final, it's not, yeah. So then on the second page, basically it tells us report your tax liability by quarter only if you're over 500 bucks. Was I over 500? No. So do I have to do anything there? No. Then you just got to sign it. And send in a check for 168 bucks.
Parts 3 and 4.
Sure. So there's nothing in 3. We're not going to have any adjustments.
What would be an adjustment?
If there was some reason that there was a difference in the tax base between SUDA and FUDA. And I can't think of any examples.
So we shouldn't have to deal with that on.
No. You will have, on the homework, somebody that's in a credit reduction state, I believe, and you'll have to do a Schedule A. But I'm not going to have, and that's, the homework's always harder than the tests. I'm not going to have you do a Schedule A on the exam. Okay, let me give you one more example, and then I'm going to give you 5 minutes to start on it, and then you should finish that for Monday along with your homework, okay? So the second payroll register, we just did banner, right? So this is, does yours sure value say biweekly? I don't think yours does. For some reason, I don't feel like the new one's got there. Okay, it's not monthly, it's biweekly. I'm going to repost this, but just you can start setting up your table. And here's the assumption that I paid, it's the third quarter, and I paid 2 checks a month. So if it's biweekly, I've got to tell you that, right? 2 or 3 checks each month. So how many times were they paid in the quarter? Again, 6.
Can you upload that so that it's portrait? You can't put those on ours.
I am. I'm going to get rid of, in fact, I'm going to do that right now. I don't know why these didn't end up there.
I don't know either. I don't know why there's a button, but.
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. So set up your table and start getting the gross wages in. Oh, cool, thanks. Okay, thanks. And again, it's not like you're going to be sitting at your desk doing this, but you have to be able to look at the 940 and say, is this reasonable? And so you have to understand what's, behind the software printing it out. People are always like, why do we still do this? The computer does it. Yeah, but you got to check it. Okay, so I uploaded the clean copies of these. Sure. I don't know why those old ones were up there. Okay, so we'll finish this, so the goal obviously is to do the table and do the 940. We'll take a peek at that on Monday. We'll take a look at your homework on Monday for chapter 5. We're done with all those extra payroll problems. And then maybe I'll give, it looks like we'll have some time next week. Maybe I'll give Wednesday to work on the CLGM in class. So if anybody has questions or is stuck anywhere. Okay. Happy weekend. Go enjoy the sun. Huh?